If you have a teenager, is your conversation something like this? So, dear, how was your day?
Fine.
What did you do?
Nothing.
Okay, well, what would you like for dinner, honey?
Whatever.
All right, fine. We'll have the boiled Brussels sprouts that we had left over from last week.
Ah, you're so dramatic.
Okay. Growing up online, many of today's teens feel more comfortable communicating through social media. Our next guest wanted to create a safe space for teens to share their stories vocally, and then they were animated.
When we pulled into the DMV, I saw my dad's smiling face, hoping I had passed, but I just started crying.
I politely asked her about the rumors and that I'd appreciate if she didn't say these things about me.
I like another girl. I was about to die. I was about to run away and never come back to school.
The YouTube channel Storybooth has over 2 billion views, and now there's even a book with more heartwarming, embarrassing, thought-provoking stories about real life. One of the founders of Storybooth, Marcy Kaye, joins us with how this can also be of value to parents. Good morning, Marcy.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You have been a digital entrepreneur for about 25 years now. And the further back you go in that 25 years, the more remarkable it is, because you saw things coming that the rest of us weren't so aware of. When was the moment where you thought about the implications social media and being online could have on kids in particular?
I think it was when the tools of social media came out. You know, when I started, it was chat rooms and message boards, which were really monitored a lot of the time by companies like America Online back in the day. And so when Instagram came out and Facebook came out and the pace of digital started just getting faster and faster and faster, that's where I saw, wait a second, this is going to get really complex for us as parents, as media companies, and for the whole world. Yeah. And so it's a very fast paced, as we all know as parents, our kids are moving so much faster than we are. And that's part of why we started Storybooth, because we became concerned about the pace of the digital world.
Yeah, you had the foresight to do that, and you had at home another reason to do that. You and your co-creator were both dealing with some moody teens.
Moody teens. We started it when they were in middle school, and now they're the moody teens. And, you know, parenting is hard today. I can't keep up with them. And I love the segment of that role playing you just did, because I think as parents, we're somewhat clueless. And our kids are much smarter than we are. So they inspired all of this. I saw in middle school that the challenges they were dealing with were so much different than I had growing up. Yeah. And I think it was exacerbated by digital. You know, they are on an always on mythical lives world where they're pretending on social media, and all of their interactions with their friends, they're not on the phone anymore. They're looking at pictures and Snapchatting. So,
and when you say friends, it's like most of those friends they've never met in their life and have no idea who they are. But when you say also communicating online, if you have dark thoughts, for example, or you're feeling down about yourself, if you find the community that supports that, you know, we've seen that with like the school shooter situations or any mass shooter situation, they seem to find that group that corroborates what they're going to do. And so you, just as you can find positive influences, you can also find those negative ones.
It's so true. I think part of why we started Storybooth was to say, hey, we can use this technology to really support each other in all the best ways and to be vulnerable and authentic. And we see that making a huge difference. We're connecting kids from all over the world. But like you just said, it can be used for the negative to fuel things that, especially for teens, you know, I would say posting perfect lives and perfect pictures of yourself isn't helping their self-esteem. And I think we're still learning about the impact this is having on their mental health. So it could be used for good, but it could also be used for complete disconnection and negativity.
Yeah. What I love about this is that you encourage kids to verbalize, speak it out loud, get it out of your head and share it. You know, it's interesting because in school we always say theater, whether you want to go in to be an actor one day or not, theater is so good because it's cathartic. You can play a role and get it out. In this sense, you're not just playing a role and hiding behind a character, you're telling your story.
It's so true, Deborah. I mean, I think part of healing is sharing stories. We're all human. We're all going through the ups and downs of life. And I think what I love most about Storybooth is the authenticity of these kids. We have over 500,000 stories from kids all over the world. all races, all economic backgrounds, all religions. And they're coming together to say, hey, these are my truths. And it's hard to do today, right? It's really hard, even as adults, to be vulnerable. Yeah. And I think that blows my mind every day, is that I think that it's a complex world. It's hard. We're seeing so many mental health stories, an increase post-COVID. But on the flip side, we're seeing connection and support. And just that sharing of that simple story can build empathy. And that's what's so amazing about what you just said. It's
empathy
really
and sympathy, because you can see on there somebody else went through this too, and it's going to be all right. It's great therapy. And what I also love about it is that it's in their voice telling their story, but they have a level of anonymity where they can escape the judgment if they thought that was coming.
So true. I mean, how many times are we judging each other on social media? And so part of what the beauty of Storybooth is, they have their character and they're animated. So it's kind of like a block against judgment. And it's their real voice and it's their real words. We don't direct them. But yeah, in a world where there's so much judgment and so much always on Snapchat pictures, how do I look? This is the place where they have a little bit of protection, but they're still offering a real space for communication and who they are and what they're going through.
I peed myself on the roller coaster at Six Flags.
Inside, it felt like a professional boxer was beating my chest.
It was one of my first times in my life when I realized people understood what I was going through at the time.
I peed myself on the ride. I think that was one of my peers in school sent that one in because it happened at Astroworld, but we laughed about it and got through it. There are a lot of tough topics that a lot of times parents don't want to talk to their kids about the tough stuff because I think they're too young for it, not realizing they're going through it already.
You're so right. I think it's sometimes scary and sobering to look at some of the things that kids are exposed to, but the truth is, we're seeing complex topics come up right now. We're living in a really complex world, whether it's gun violence, racism, and COVID especially. I think we've seen an increase in mental health stories since the pandemic, and that's from isolation and that's from fear. And so as parents, I think, and it's hard because I'm a mom too, and I have those really moody teens, but I think we just have to listen because this is happening whether we like it or not. We can't kind of say, no, we're not going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
It's real, and they're seeing and exposed to so much. So the more we can just hear them and accept that this is the world we're living in, I think it helps us as parents and educators and adults.
What was the first story that came in that you went, wow?
You know, there was a story where a young girl was sexually abused, and that story and the bravery of her sharing that story with Storybooth. And we've spoken to a lot of educators about it who now use it in schools, because I think one of the things they see when you're abused is that you don't speak about it, and that stops the healing. And so when I heard that story and the vulnerability and also the positivity of someone moving through that, and how it's also now being used in schools, it just blew me away, the bravery of this young girl to tell it. And I realized, you know, as much as we get those peeing on the roller coaster stories or the heartbreak or the acne, which is just teen life.
Yeah. The bikini fail. Yeah.
The bikini fail, top off, you know, boys looking. And by the way, the peed on the roller coaster, she was sitting next to her crush, so that was like even worse.
Oh yeah, speaking of, some of the most watched, I sent pictures to a boy I liked and shouldn't have. Don't judge me for being goth. My dad was never there for me. I was homeless, scary little sister, all those types of stories. And it's almost like when kids can do this, sometimes they're probably talking to their parents, not literally, but this is they're voicing it, hoping that somebody will listen and hear them and understand. But one thing that storyteller stories do is unify. You have a book coming out. Tell us about the book.
The book has been really exciting. Like I said, we have 500,000 stories, and we signed this deal with HarperCollins during the pandemic. So we're able to really create something that reflects the world we've been living in the past 2 years. So the book was just a natural extension of what we do online. Storytelling is storytelling. And so we have stories from real kids all over the world. None of our words are in it. It's all their words, from everything from COVID to acne to mental health. Again, it's like, I like to think of it as Gen Z in a time capsule. I think it's great for the adults in the room too, because when you read the book, you can really understand what this generation is going through. Yeah. And we were able to illustrate it in a way that I think really adds a level of detail that we can't do on the YouTube channel, that hopefully will help kids not feel alone in the world and adults in the room to really understand what they're going through.
Yeah, I'm a frustrated therapist. I just haven't gotten an LPC license. But when I was looking at the book, I'm thinking this would be a great thing for, we have story time when our kids are little, but how about story time where you sit down and go through the book and create a safe space, go through those stories together and ask your child, do you ever feel like any of these kids? Do you have friends who are going through any of these things? And stop, be quiet, let them answer, let them talk, because they feel like I mentioned earlier, I think sometimes they feel like they can't tell their parents these stories, so that's why they're so gravitated to Storybooth. But if they feel like they have an opportunity to talk to you and not be punished or judged, then this book can be one of those things that opens them up.
I mean, you said it better than I did. You should be a therapist. It is exactly what a parent should do, because I think as parents, we get so, especially when our kids are going through things, and my kids have gone through a lot, and you're trying to keep up and you're trying to fix or hear or listen. But this book, like you said, if you just open it up and read it with them and give them that space, like you said, I think it can just take the pressure off of them and just allow these things to unfold in a very natural, organic way that is really powerful.
I have an 18-year-old, a friend of mine called who I haven't seen in a while and said, how's your son doing? I say, he's great. He thinks he knows everything. He goes, he does, Deborah, in his world. Experience, experience will teach him differently. And so, those experiences of all those other teens put together, I think is a great form of therapy to get kids through. Thank you so much for doing this. I think it should be required reading in schools. Get with me, we'll work on it. Texas Education Agency. Right?
Okay. Plan. You can be our resident therapist for Storybooth because you've got it.
Okay, so. I'll go back to school and get my LPC license to make it official. Thank you very much.